ahead and start. And everybody knows Sarah. Sarah is going to lead us on a discussion of student cheating. So take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Caroline.
So I wanted to go ahead and let you guys know, I figured we'd do this kind of informal. If you want to get up, go get more food, get a drink, get dessert, now that the ice cream machine's working again, please feel free to do so. I wasn't really told how structured this needed to be, so I thought we'd keep it as more of a casual conversation, which means I am going to ask you all to share some of your anecdotes and stories and examples from your experiences, given that we've each had different experiences and we may not know what the others have gone through and what to look out for in our own classroom. And I have a fairly exhaustive list of examples that I know of, but I know that you guys probably know things that I don't. So I'm going to ask that you feel comfortable enough to share, but as Caroline said, please be very cautious. You may refer to students as John Doe, Johnny, student X, student A, B, and C, whatever, but please do avoid names for the sake of FERPA violations. Okay, but feel free to come and go as you need. I do hope that you'll share with us, and I hope that I can introduce to you some things that maybe you don't know about in your classroom. And to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little precursor of where some of this info came from. Since I started teaching, I've always been fairly conscientious of cheating in the classroom. I had a colleague in graduate school who that is what she studied, was college students cheating. And so since I started teaching as an adjunct in the GTA, I knew that this was a problem in the classroom. I've gotten more strict with it as we've gone. But to let you know where some of the anecdotes I'm going to share with you come from are not just personal experiences. I have actually asked my students to anonymously this semester submit to me examples that they knew of, that either they had done or that they knew other students had done in their classes here at Midway. Okay? And let's put it this way, there's 28 students in the class. I asked each to submit 2 to 3 examples, and not one of them hesitated. They didn't have a moment's hesitation of being able to easily come up with 2 to 3 examples. That to me was very disconcerting. Okay, that right off the bat, they just, yeah, I know many examples. Which ones do you want us to put down? So, well, give me 2 of your best ones. Okay, so we're going to actually play with those examples here in a little bit. But to get started, I wanted to kind of give a base of knowledge and kind of get us started with this discussion. So, first question. How many of you have had to deal with at least one instance of cheating or academic dishonesty in your classroom that you know of? Raise your hands, raise them high, and keep them up if you would. Okay, quit being, if you don't have a hand up, you probably should, and you just don't know that you should have a hand up. Okay? So with those hands up, how many of you would say more than one instance? 2 to 4. 5 to 10. Is this cheating? 10 or more. Okay, we start kind of hitting it. And I know some of that might be, I know some of us are newer to teaching than others. Maybe if we've only been around a couple years, we haven't discovered that many yet. A lot of us are new here, right? There's been a lot of turnover at Midway the last 4 or 5 years. So if I said, well, in your whole career, how many of you had? I've definitely had way more than 10 if I take into account previous institutions as well. But the point is when I tell you the stats here in a minute, we know that most of you have probably had to in the class. It's whether or not you're aware of it. But think about the hands you just saw up around here. Over 75% of you had your hands up, no problem. Yes, I've had an instance. And that's just the ones you know about. Okay? And as we're going to talk in a minute, students can be pretty sneaky, and I got to give them credit. They're pretty inventive and creative on the ways that they come up with cheating so that they believe we don't know. They believe we don't know. And so to me, Ellen had actually asked me to do a different topic, and I said, you know, I see this as a problem here, and I think it'd be fun for us to have a conversation about something that many of us may just not be as aware of, just how it's going on and how they're doing it, and little things that we can do to the best of our ability to try to curtail them just a little bit. I know, and I want to give this as a precursor to this entire talk. We love our students. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. We want to have faith in them. We want to have trust in them that they are above this. And unfortunately, what stats show is most of them have done it at some point. So as much as we want to think, oh, I adore Susie, Susie's a great student, Susie would never do such a thing, most students admit they've cheated at some point. Okay? So this is not a to send you out and be leery of your students, not have any faith and trust in them anymore. It's more of a, what can we try to do to make sure that we are cultivating a culture on this campus that doesn't tolerate it, that sends a message that we don't tolerate it. Because unfortunately what happens is if it's going on in your classroom, it's making it harder on everyone else too. Because if they think they can get away with one class, they think they can get away with the others. Or I catch them, they say, well, I got caught for the same thing in so-and-so's class and I didn't get in trouble for it. Okay? So I think this more, for me, is not an instructional, do this, do that, don't do that. It's a, start thinking about some of these things and ways that students might be doing them in your classroom and what you can do to try to help contribute to a change in that culture here on campus. Okay? So if we think about having this conversation, I think the first thing you have to do, as you would in any research study, we need to kind of operationalize what we mean by cheating, right? And what behaviors does cheating entail? So when I say cheating more broadly, what kind of activity do you see in your classroom or you see students doing that you say, that constitutes cheating, that's something we need to deal with?
Even in the book when I told them that they're not to on an online.
Okay, so things like open book when they've been told this is a closed book test. What else? Copying someone else's discussion. Yeah, copying discussion posts more broadly. I assume everybody's had the copying the homework, right? Things like that. What else? Huh?
Copying on exams.
Copying on exams, right? So we will get into kind of what can we do, but obviously you can't watch all of them like a hawk all the time either. Okay.
You mentioned academic dishonesty or information. There's intellectual property theft.
Absolutely.
I will copy and paste it from someone else.
Whether it's plagiarism, whether it's lack of citations to give people credit where credit's due. And be aware that obviously some of you deal with some of these more than others. If you're an English professor, that's probably your biggest concern. I don't do a ton of writing in my classes, and the ones I do tend to use aren't the kind of thing that they can necessarily go find something and submit it. Is my way to try to get around that a little bit. So depending on what you teach, you may or may not have different forms of cheating more prevalent does. Also, because we are online and in seat, you've got the fact that some of you, like Carolyn brought up, well, I'm worried because I teach online and they're using a book when I told them not to. Whereas obviously if I'm teaching in seat, I know if they've got the book out. It's all the other things we have to worry about them doing during that test. So be aware that depending on what you're doing, how you're teaching things, some of these are going to be more prevalent to you than others. Okay, so we've got those. What else would you consider?
Getting formulas on your hands.
Oh, my favorite. And not just your hands.
Your clothes.
Everything.
The best
The arms, and then they'll pull the sleeves up.
On their socks.
On the clothes. My favorite is, I know students always ask me, why do you make us do that? I make them take hats off. Bills with a hat. You know how the boys will take the hat off and they'll do this whole run? Yep, they're looking at a cheat sheet on the inside of the bill with a hat. Okay? Water bottles. Yes, I know we all get thirsty and hungry while we're taking a test, but they'll write on the inside of wrappers. Take water bottle wrappers out, write a cheat sheet on the inside, glue it right back on. Okay? All sorts of things.
I don't even let them use the earbuds.
I had one yesterday. I gave my first test in one class, and she had the earbuds in, and she looked at me funny when I told her she needed to take them out. Why? I mean, what if she really is just listening to some white jazz to relax and doing the test? She also could have recorded the lecture. She could have recorded lectures. She could have recorded herself reading off a study guide, whatever. They're not listening to music, most likely, if they've got the earbuds on during the test. If they come to you and say, and this is something we need to be aware of too, if they come to you and say, I can't take a test in here with a distraction. Okay, you need to go to Sarah Mudd, you need to get your documentation that you are entitled to taking tests in a distraction-free zone, and then I will gladly accommodate. Okay? But otherwise, earbuds out during my thing.
I've had the students ask, can I put in earplugs?
That I know, right? Yeah, go right ahead. As long as I check with earplugs, there's no cheat sheet.
I start looking at them really closely.
I don't think they recorded anything like that.
But that, like, it's a, squishy earplugs. If they're like, I need to not be able to hear all the distractions,
Absolutely.
by all means, please bring yourself to the earplugs.
It's another option, right?
Yeah.
What else do you come across?
I've had students able to copy and take a picture with the screensaver on their phone.
Oh, yep. We're going to get into the phone guy in a minute.
It's hard.
Okay.
It's hard, and it'll have.
Yep. And let's put it this way, the first rule I have on exams, and a couple people say exams will be last fall, and I think they kind of looked at my list and were like, oh my God, but I have a list of rules on exam day. And number one is no phones for any reason whatsoever. And I tell you, you pull it out, I'm going to assume automatically you're cheating. It's an automatic zero. Because there are 1,000,001 ways. And that was the first way I learned about cheating. My friend who was studying it in grad school, cell phones that just came out. I had a cell phone to call like AAA or my parents if my car broke down. That was the only way I knew you used a cell phone. And kids were already figuring out ways, hey, I can come up with some great way to use this to cheat in my classes. So yeah, the cell phones are a big one with it.
My older son texted me one day and said, Dad, the new thing now, she's on iWatch.
Yeah.
And I'm watching a YouTube on how it's done.
Yeah. So think about a watch, and all you got to do right on now where my Fitbit, you just flip it up to kind of see, oh, a text is coming in. Well, you don't know what's on that text, who that text is from, what that text might say. Okay. I'm going to give you guys the samples that my students turned in a minute, and one had that on there. The other big one right now is, do you guys know what airdropping is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's things like taking photos of full assignments or full exams or answer sheets and stuff, and basically doing like group dispersal to everybody in the class. Whether it be during the test or for the test. Some people talk about too. Some of you may not be aware that students are getting a hold of your answer keys beforehand. Okay. And being able to use them.
I had a professor in college that he had 4 different so the person, that stopped a whole lot of people, but he did not tell us the first time until after we took the test. And
you can catch them that way too when they got the same answer.
Exactly.
Like, you have just a version of the test.
And he had a sheet where everybody sat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he was able to look at people sitting side by side, he could tell they were cheating.
And we'll talk about it in a minute. There's ways you can combat this. You don't necessarily have to write a full different text. If you actually just change the first couple of questions, or change the order, or the first page, it can be as simple as that. Or even, believe it or not, research, all you have to even do is put Form A, Form B, Form C, Form D at the top, and they automatically believe there's 4 versions of this test. I better not cheat off of somebody sitting next to me. So if you can't spread your students out, like with a seat in between during tests, these are little things that you could kind of, yeah, we know that copying off someone else's test is a big one that's going on in classes.
I had, my lab is right across from my office. So if I just walk across the hall to go to my lab, I don't necessarily lock my door, because I pay to get locked out of your office. And I may have done that. I had a student come to me when I had a private meeting, we shut the door, and showed me a text message that another student had gone into my office around behind my desk, found an answer key, and sent a picture to everyone. So I found a way to get around it, and they were all really sad about it, but I don't care. But I was like, you went into my office. If anything had been missing, I would have pressed charge it.
But it's disturbing. They don't need to do this. I had a student, one of the examples, they broke into the faculty office to get copies. Okay? And I mean, I know I'm as guilty as anyone. Edie, Gina, and I, we all have the same sweet stuff. And I always kind of feel like as long as Edie or Gina's there, I can walk out of my office and leave the door open. But let's face it, they can come in, take pictures. I find, for example, a lot of times they'll go into the common room where we all print out everything. And they're sitting on the printer. If you send it, you want to be right there and get it off media. Especially second floor of LRC, students are using it more and more. We didn't use that to use that copier at all, but now they're using it all the time. And so you send your answer key, next thing you know, they all have access. Okay? And so these are some of the things we want to think about. If we want to put them into some of the bigger categories of cheating that we know. These are the ones that you might want to think about listing out, for example, on a syllabus. Because what we're going to address here is we need to be clear on how we define academic dishonesty. I know this is something that a lot of schools are just starting to work on. When I was at Pikeville for a year, right before I came to Midway, I chaired a committee that was academic dishonesty, and we were rewriting our policy, what it entailed, and what the process was. And that's something we might want to consider here, just because what it does do is it gives you power, it backs you. It tells the student, this is not just me and my policy, this is the school's policy, and you will be held accountable, not just because Dr. Whiteford's a wicked capital B, but you're going to be held accountable because the school holds this policy. Now, we can do that, interdepartmentally, we can do it by school, we can do it as a university as a whole, but the kind of things we need to think about, and I teach this in my law classes, is it fair to hold a student accountable for an action that you have not necessarily told them is wrong, right? If the government all of a sudden started arresting people and said, you broke the law, but the law is nowhere written, and you were not forewarned that that was illegal action, is that fair? Not really, okay? So we have to be clear with them from the get-go, okay? And typically where we think about doing this is in our syllabus, right? Laying out very clearly, here are actions that constitute academic dishonesty for the purpose of this class, okay? And depending on what your class is, you might include different things. So for example, I know not everybody who teaches NC does online quizzes. As Caroline will tell you, I use lots of online quizzes. And so I have a lot of policies regarding how those are done in terms of ways that students will figure out how to cheat on those. But we include the plagiarism, lack of giving credit, copying a classmate's homework, or copying an exam, looking off an exam, buying papers from someone else, either other students in the class, or online, or people who took the class previously. We'll talk about study bank. Anybody in here, when they were in college in like fraternities, sororities, sports teams that did this? Yeah, there were 4-drawer filing cabinets up in the attic of our sorority house that were literally, every time someone took the class, you kept the entire folder of everything you had, put it up there, anybody else could use it, okay? And so they'll turn in the same paper, and I've had it done, I'm like, I think I saw this paper a couple years ago. Yeah, fraternity brother turned it in a couple years before, right? So be conscientious of things like that, that they'll buy papers off of someone else, using the cheat sheets on the exam, we obviously have, having another person do their work. And you would think, I mean, we all worked our way through school and grad school and jobs. We did our own work. We carried our own weight. Why would you do someone else's for you? Because they love me, doing it for my significant other, doing it for my best friend, doing it for my teammate because, hey, we really need to keep her on the soccer team and she's not doing good in her classes and we can't stand to lose her from academic probation. There's a variety of reasons why they will do each other's homework for them. Or I'll do the homework in this class and you'll do the homework for both of us in that class. Okay? A lot of exchanging going on. Sharing answers to exams and quizzes, sharing answers on homework, taking another person's quizzes for them. This is what ex-proctor is supposed to be for, and as much as Caroline is always my go-to, I pick up Caroline, I'm having trouble, I'm sending another student, a lot don't use it. Okay? For a variety of reasons, they've had trouble or they claim it's not compatible with their computer or whatever. A lot of them aren't using the kind of systems we're supposed to be able to check that. And I've asked my students, I said, you have to use this. We're required to use it. And they'll tell me that I don't have to do it in any of my other classes. And so that's another one where if we're not all doing it, it's kind of given them this perception that, well, we don't have to do that. Right? But by stats, we are supposed to be, if you do online components, you have to be able to ascertain that it is that student doing the work. And since I've had so much trouble with it, what I've turned around to do to my students is say, look, here's the deal. If I suspect you of cheating and you didn't use ex-proctor, I'm going to use that as evidence against you. Because I had a student who said, well, how can I prove I did? I said, did you use ex-proctor? Because then you can prove to me you did it. Well, no. In that case, it was because mom was doing it. Right. But yeah, things like taking another student's quizzes for them. There's also, beyond plagiarism, things just falsifying information, right? Making it look like John Doe 1997 wrote this great research, and you go look and there's no John Doe 1997 out there. And then I had a lot of problems in my classes with collaboration on individual assignment work. Okay? And so when I make an assignment, I in all caps put, this is assigned individually. Okay? And yet they still oftentimes will collaborate a little more than perhaps they should. Okay? So here's the thing. We're going to focus today a little bit more on the in-class, in-seat, the exams, the copying, things like that, a little more, just because that's what I'm more familiar with, and I think what most of us tend to have more problems with than others. But when we think about defining cheating and kind of coming up with an operational definition, it's important that we do it so that we put it in our syllabus. We're clear with the students from the get-go. This constitutes academic dishonesty for the purpose of my class. And then we have to also be clear what an appropriate punishment is. The way the law works, the law, if you ever read the criminal code or the legal code, it doesn't just say, thou shalt not take another's life. It tells you the exact action that constitutes murder 1, murder 2, negligent homicide, all sorts of things. And then it also will tell you, for example, this is a Class A felony. And Class A felonies equate to a certain amount of punishment. Okay? We have to be clear that this is the behavior that will not be accepted, and these are the potential punishments you face. For the purpose of today, I kind of figured we probably aren't going to have time to get through all of that. Okay? And maybe what we need is another conversation at another time regarding what are appropriate punishments and how do we maybe consider a university-wide policy that we can have this, at least a base, that this is bare minimum what each of us needs. Because we can have a little bit of it that we're expected to put into our syllabus. Okay? So here's what we know from research. Faculty actually are likely to agree these are the behaviors that constitute cheating. You can take most faculty at any university, there's pretty good consensus, that's cheating, that's not, that's cheating, that's not. What we have a harder time agreeing on, and this is why I said maybe we save it for a whole other one, it's very difficult to get your entire faculty to agree to what appropriate punishments are for each type of behavior. Okay? And that's where trying to put together a university-wide policy. I mean, I worked on the chair of the committee doing this, and there was only about 10 of us on the committee, and we couldn't hardly get the 10 of us to agree on what appropriate outcomes would be. Okay? But at least to lay out some guidelines of here's some possibilities. Here's some different outcomes that we might do for cheating. Okay, so we at some point need to have that conversation too about what we're going to do about it with cheating. So the question would become then, how prevalent is it? Okay, how much faith and trust do you have in those students that they're not? And how do you think it's changed over time, especially with this new millennial generation? I think it's probably more than It's probably more than you think, right? You're like, Dr. Wyford just scared me. I know it's going to be more people than I think it is.
I think that was one of the things about the millennials that they take pride in. They're ingenuous.
It's a talent, yes. They get pure acumen, right? What's the word I'm looking for? From their peers, right? They get positive feedback about it from their peers. Look how cool I am because I pulled this off. And I know my students do this because they're like, Dr. Wyford thinks she's on top of this and she knows how to crack down on cheating, but I got away with it in her class. Right? And have had students come to me saying, so-and-so is bragging about getting away with this.
It's usually what gets them caught, too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right? It's the ego. You got to watch those egos. But yeah, it's pretty high. Okay, so I went back and did a little longitudinal work to kind of see just what some of the numbers have been. If you go back about half a century, okay, even starting as early as the 60s, half the students would admit they'd engaged in cheating. Now, we're all of a generation just enough older than these students to think, how has that probably changed since the 60s? Rates of cheating have gotten worse, right? Every successive generation seems to be getting a little bit worse, is what it's amounting to. And no doubt, this generation has the perk of technology to help them in ways that we didn't, right? We had to be more creative about coming up with ways to cheating because you didn't have a phone to help you with it. But each generation's getting new, brilliant ideas because of the technology behind it. And let's face it, there's a market for it, right? I mean, if I thought I could make as much money selling papers online as teaching, hey, I could stay home, write papers, and sell them to a bunch of none the wiser college students. But the idea is that there's a market for some of these things. And so each generation is doing a little bit more. So 1964, about half said they cheated. By 1980, about 75% were saying they had cheated. Okay. If you look at small colleges, would you think it's better or worse here? I mean, originally when I went at this, I thought, I would hope it's better. Smaller class sizes, better one-on-one relationships between faculty and student. Doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. Okay? It's just as high at small schools. In fact, a 1994 study found that it was 89% at small schools that cheated. Okay? if we look at millennials as a generation, these kids that we are teaching now, okay, why do you think they might even be higher? What is it about this generation? If we had to sum up, so I just had my juvenile delinquency class, they had to do a youth culture project. I framed it to them as, teach me about your generation. Teach me your youth culture, what makes you all a unique generation from my generation, right? I'm 20 years older than them. I'm trying to figure out, what's going on. And I said, what is it about your generation? What characterizes you? So they also do generational interviews with like their grandparents, that parents' generation. What do they think about? And what's kind of the common feedback we tend to give about this generation?
They think they don't have to work.
They think they don't have to, it's a sense of entitlement.
Mhm.
That is the number one thing people respond to when asked to sum up the millennial generation. A sense of entitlement. Well, do you think that sense of entitlement affects Judy?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm entitled to all
Also,
of this.
the millennial generation, research has shown, believes that information is free and
Yep.
it is open for creation and interpretation.
If it's out there and I can get it, it's mine to have.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's easy for them to get it.
it
Right.
is. Exactly. So, I don't know how much of that is, are we enabling it? Is it the technology's enabling it? It is definitely something we then have to be aware of, that this is the mind frame that they come into this with.
I sometimes hear from students, not really, they're not going to come to my office and tell me about my own class, 'cause that's never going to be, let's hope they don't do that. Sometimes they do, but often I'll overhear them talking to each other and they forget I'm in the room.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Or you
And
walk
it'll
in
be-
unexpectedly.
Yeah, but they'll be talking about how unreasonably difficult something is.
Right.
And it's almost like that there's this conversation I've heard that some of my current students, I don't want to overgeneralize, have an attitude of, this is too hard, I must not reasonably be expected to be able to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then
And that's not good.
Then they're
Yeah.
entitled to
Right.
because you have an unrealistic. I get that too, because I tell my students, and I know it, I give a lot of work. It's not necessarily hard work. I give a lot of work. But they do. They kind of come at it that I'm unreasonable about it. And I struggled with that my first year or two here, because I couldn't tell how much of it was, I didn't have that in New York. And I didn't know if that was a regional difference. I mean, you got to figure New York's always been about the top 5 educationally speaking. Kentucky's usually a little bit closer to the bottom. If it was enough of a generation gap in those couple of years of teaching that this generation was just that much further behind this other, where I was at was $50,000 a year. They kind of expected that they needed to get their money's worth, so they were into getting an education. I didn't know. So I had a very hard time with this, that I was always getting pushback on the, well, it's because you're asking too much of us. And I'm like, I give a quiz, a reading quiz before every class, and they are open book. It is a 5-question quiz, but apparently that's being unreasonable. And so they do it. They have this sense of, well, this is my coping mechanism. I can cheat because you are unreasonable in your asking. And so that entitlement does tend to pan out a little in their justifications for, and that's one of the, we talk to students about why they cheat. One of the things they use is what we call techniques of neutralization, right? Psychologists use neutralization, sociologists use it. In criminology, there's a theory on, there's basically 5 techniques people use to neutralize. They deny a victim, they deny injury, they condemn the condemners, they appeal to higher loyalty, and there's one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. But the idea is they neutralize, well, it's okay that I'm doing this because. And what Cynthia just gave an example, a perfect example, right? It's okay I'm doing this because Dr. Ryder's just too hard. And so they do use these as a way to deal with what might have inspired guilt, knowing they're doing something wrong, and accept that they're doing it. So that, this is the psychologist field, the whole idea of, coming to terms with a behavior that otherwise they don't see themselves as cheaters.
Where do you think this comes from, this sense of entitlement? Is this something that has been provoked from generations back,
I don't know.
and that we have
Maybe.
somehow made these people?
I have no idea.
If you have to think about
I
it,
know.
because they just didn't happen to be the way they are.
Yeah.
And
As a
so there has
sociologist
to
by
be a
training,
reason.
I really
You have
think
to
it's
do
access to information. I mean, we had to look information up. We had to, there was something to do to learn something.
we had to
And now
work for
it
it.
is literally
right at their fingertips.
All
Just
the
literally
time.
say to them,
Like
hey,
they don't
Google.
they don't have to work hard to get answers.
And so they're used to it. It's a pattern of behavior they've learned. That there's always
That's
an
what I'm
easy way
saying.
out.
There's a
There's
root,
always an
and
easier
something
way out.
has progressed this.
I think there also is an attitude in our culture that anyone, I mean, we're all responsible for our culture on some level, but you will succeed whatever it takes. Not, you should force yourself to succeed, but we will all make sure you succeed no matter what happens. And
I think that's the whole concept of like everybody
Yeah.
has a trophy.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like no matter what, you can do your best or you can do your minimum, so we're all going to get rewarded. And we are contributing to this as a university too. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've heard it said, what do we do to just get this kid out? How do I get them that piece of paper and get them out? And that perpetuates the same type of attitude of, I'm paying my way, I'm paying, I get that piece of paper when I'm done.
And that's a lot of paper.
And that's a lot, I was gonna say, that's a higher ed thing,
It's not,
especially private.
it's not just millennials.
No.
I'm teaching it in the teacher research course, you know. They all have to identify a problem of practice, the topic, problem of practice, the rationale, the purpose, the design, and then the research methodology. They can't cheat on me. But what I get is it's too hard. I got people who are used to spending maybe 5-10 hours a week on a course. They're told at the beginning of this course, this is going to be demanding, it's going to be something that you never have before. And I held Zoom conferences the first couple, 2-3 weeks. Over half the class didn't attend. They are the ones who will not make it to IOB because they haven't put the time in. And there's this sense of, I work full time, I have a family, I have church activities, and you're asking me
To give more than 5 hours a week.
maybe 10 hours, maybe more than 10 hours a week. And you know what? The answer is yeah. I don't know this thing when I did my degree too. But that's, and to learn, what I struggle with is the respect that the discipline is due is not being given. So there are certain disciplines that you have to put time into. I think all disciplines, but it's varying degrees of time that you have to put in. And some things you learn are just more difficult than others. And if you respect your discipline, you put the time in.
There's perceptions that this one is really easier. I mean, I get a lot of kids off the bat that are, oh, this is PJ, this is going to be easy.
Yeah,
You know, it was the cake course at this other school or whatever, and then they get mine and it's like,
Education system too.
It is.
It is. It's like the first time, I was blown away the first time I had a student say, can I retake this test? Because I always did. in
what can
high
I do
school.
for extra
And I was
credit?
kind of like, yeah.
What?
Like, because they have to meet
Or to tell them,
standards.
tell them there's a due date, and this is when it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, can't I? No.
I get it
They
every
don't.
time. Can I retake this? Yep. They go, how else can I make it up? I'm like, no, you got 40. You gotta make it up by doing better on your next test.
My favorite criticism of my grading was the student who told me, well, when I turned this paper in high school, I got an A. I'm like,
Hey, good job. But you know, we do have to ask the broader cultural question of why they're doing it. You know, is it something we're doing that's allowing it? Is it unreasonable expectations? Is it the K through 12 schools are enabling them, and then we have to do a 180 with them when they get to us and tell them, no, that's not how it is here? I did look up a little research on if we want to think about why students cheat, because let's face it, we can't address the problems. I always use the analogy in my classes, and my nurses will get this, right? Like, you've got a gaping wound that's bleeding all over the place, and if you don't know the cause of the wound, you just slap a Band-Aid on it, it doesn't exactly do a lot of good, does it? And so when we talk about crime control in my class, I say, well, what are the causes? If we don't get down to the causes, we aren't going to fix it with whatever policy that we put into place. So if we look at why students cheat, okay? I really like this one research I found was a meta-analysis of 107 different research articles on cheating. Okay, looking at everything, that's a good one, right? All the different ways that people have cheated, why they cheat, so on and so forth. And this is what they come up with as the strongest correlates and reasons for why students cheat. Okay? Some of it is what Cynthia and I were just talking about. Do we have these unreasonable expectations for success? Right? This idea that as a society, we have created in them, whether it's the trophy thing or whatnot, the perception that success is there, success is within my grasp, I need to succeed, success is important, and I need to succeed at any cost. Okay? And unfortunately, that's what we've also taught them in academia too, right? You need this paper to go on in your field. You need this degree to be able to do something. I hate when we get 18-year-old kids who are like, I don't want to be in college, why am I here? And I'm like, why are you here? You can go to vocational school and make twice as much money as I make as a professor. Go right ahead. But we do, as a society, we push them into school, we push them into academic success, and unfortunately, we've kind of framed up that success, they have to have success at all costs. Okay? And so academic success included, they have these expectations of success, they anticipate a large reward for success. So even if I have to give up my morals and ethics a little bit here for these 4 years in college, it'll pay off in the long run. Right? I get that high GPA, then I can go on and do whatever in my field, get a great job, it'll pay off in the long run. Okay? And so some of it's the overemphasis on success. High correlates of having cheated in the past. You don't get caught, what do you learn about behavior? It works. It works. Keep doing it. Or you get caught and there's not a severe enough sanction to it. Hey, it was worth it. You know, if there's a minute chance I get caught, but the 9 out of 10 times I don't, it's worth it in the long run. Okay, so learned behavior over time. A lot of students will sum it up as they have poor conditions under which they're studying. And we hear this a lot, right? I'm in basketball, I'm in baseball, we had a soccer game, we didn't get back till 2 o'clock last night, so I just didn't have time to put in adequate studying. Everybody on the bus wouldn't shut up so I could concentrate. And so they chalk it up to, it's okay for me to cheat in this circumstance because circumstances beyond my control made for poor studying conditions. Okay? And they justify it in that way. Okay? Unfortunately, what this meta-analysis shows, a lot of students actually just hold positive attitudes towards cheating in general. Like I said, it's a status-affirming thing to be able to pull it off and to be able to kind of brag about it to fellow students that they did it right underneath Dr. Whiteford's nose and she didn't even know.
But don't you think that those kind of students cheat at other things?
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. I think it is a broader thing that, again, you know, is it socially learned? Is it something that's, you know, just permeating our culture at this time? I don't know. But yeah, obviously it's something that they're learning in many ways. And it's unfortunately flowing over for us to have to deal with in the cheating field. Okay? And then the last but not least, that most students perceive that it's just a norm. They perceive that this is totally acceptable behavior. Everybody does it. And
I'm actually behind if I don't.
Yeah. I ball out if I'm not. Or is it fair for me to study and do it the right way and get a lower score than everybody else who's cheating?
I've heard that a lot.
And that's not their other. And so they just perceive it to be a social norm that everyone's doing, so why not go ahead and just participate? Okay? Some research suggests there are different types of students who do it, right? There are some gender gaps, there's age gaps, there's all sorts of other things that research points to. But what I wanted to get into and have a little time to play with today were some of those how the students do cheat. And you guys, when I asked you for what you knew, each table gets one of the little stacks, okay? You've obviously had plenty of experience in your classes too, some different examples. The ones in front of you, I just was going to put a stack on each table. So yes, go right ahead. Okay. These are, wait a minute. I'm going to put them face down. These are from my first day in my course class. I asked students to anonymously because I wanted them to be as open with me as possible. And I did this because of 2 instances that occurred last semester. I had one student, well, 2 different students come to me basically with the same message. So-and-so has asked me if I can cheat off them on these things. And I wanted to make you aware of it. And I told them no, but because I told them no, they're probably going to go to someone else and they're going to eventually find someone to do it. Right? And so I thought, okay, I did this partly, and maybe this is a little underhanded, but several of those students who got reported to me were in this class when I looked at the roster. this will be a fun way to kind of address the cheating issue from the get-go. In the course class, we talked about the adjudication process, so I did have the students then analyze the case study and what they would say should be appropriate given the law, we call it, like dishonesty policy, for the course. But if you look at some of these, some of them are the easy ones, right? Some of them are the obvious. You know that somebody's copying someone's homework and whatnot. But some of them are a little more interesting. What did you guys, you already got ones that are like, I can't believe a student actually did this. Yeah, this is got the cheat sheet between their legs. And yep. I love these things. And they put it, you know, there used to be the jokes when students would hide the phone down here and look, right?
Ah.
Nobody looks at their crotch and smiles that much. They'll do that, they'll put, and I really thought about doing this just to check that. Yeah, they'll put them underneath the hem of the skirt or the shorts and let them slide up a little bit during the test. The guys will do the sleeves, write it on the inside of the forearm, for example, so if they're taking their test from kind of this number, the answers are there.
I had a student that was wearing really dark blue jeans in class. And you know how sometimes they have those patterns in them? And I was looking at her jeans, and I thought, man, those are really cool. That's a really cool pattern. Can I see what the pattern is? So, you know, I talked to her. It was her cheat sheet. She had written it in blue ink on her own jeans. Oh, yeah. And I wouldn't notice it if I didn't think it looked cool.
Chewing gum wrappers.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Okay.
A telephone. So the professor asked you to put the telephone on the desk.
Yeah.
Before the desk. The student brought 2 telephones.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they
the other
one
one
away. The other one.
Oh, that is clever.
Good, so now I get to go sit beside them.
That's my answer. Take your phone, put it upside down in front of you, so everyone sees it and no one can accuse you of cheating. I put it on each other.
Mhm.
So here's what they are worried not just about me, but about their classmates.
I used to love, and I love my nursing faculty here too, don't get me wrong, but in New York, every professor who was not a nursing professor, he wanted the nursing students in our classes. Because the nursing students would come in on test day, they would take their backpacks, take their phones, everything off their person, they were left at the front of the room, and they would know to go sit. And you never had to worry about your nursing student the way you had to worry about the rest of the class. So we loved having the nursing students come. And maybe that's some of it. Maybe it's, you know, how do we start instilling in them a pattern of behavior that is simply expected? But again, that would be, do we all have to do it so that it just becomes normative? But there are private schools and things like that will do that as well, okay? And very hard programs that will do it. So there's something to it, or they'll give assigned seats on test day. So you can't just sit by someone you already talked to about the topic. What other ones did you guys have? I know there's a couple really good ones up there. I think I brought the one where somebody broke into a professor's office.
Well, I've got the reason that they cheated because they had a brain party.
Oh, that's a good one. My brain wasn't working that day. Really cool that I cheated. Okay. Good. Any others? I don't see it.
Using the answer also to signify whether it's
Yeah. We'll do some individual tests. And they've actually gone and Googled those tests, and a lot of tests you can find online.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know we're kind of running a little low on time, so I want you to think about some ways to combat cheating. And I'm going to go through these and something to come off of what you see there. Okay. These are just some suggestions I've compiled over the years, both from what students have told me, what I've studied, what I've seen happen, and I figure at the end, hopefully we'll have a few minutes you guys can kind of add to it. So, some of these we've already touched on. Always check your surrounding areas for cheat sheets. And here's what I want you to include in that, okay? Tables, they will write answers on tables, especially those dark tables that, like the G, you can't hardly tell it's written there, but it's written there, okay? Scrap papers, cheat sheets, things like that. Check their arms, legs, hands. I'm not saying give them a pat down when they come in. But if you do notice some of them with arms in funny positions, or they keep looking down at their lap, there might be something you want to check in those cases. You know, we just used to use the hand, but they're past that now. They do some of the other things. Props, the build-a caps, inside food wrappers. One thing I would suggest, because I caught this last semester, don't allow them bathroom breaks. Right. Tell them to go to the bathroom before the test. Otherwise, you will go into the bathroom and get such a good time. Their cheat sheet or whatever else, they're in the bathroom, they put it in a garbage can or something, they went in, they pulled it out, looked at it, and they came Okay? So try to get them to go ahead and go to the bathroom beforehand, or they'll take their phone in with them, right? If you didn't have them turn in the phones or anything at the start, they'll take the phone in with them, look at it there. Don't allow phones for any reason. Okay? Right now, that is the number one way students are cheating from phones away. Okay? A couple that you should be aware of. If they say, oh, I'm just checking the time, and they're pushing the button, they'll have set the cheat sheet to their box screen, their home screen. Okay? So they're not just looking at the time real quick, they're actually seeing the sheets from their study guide on that home screen. So that's where, yeah, keep the phone upside down or put it away in some way that they can't see it. The airdropping, where they will share via group text and things like that with other students, either during the exam, prior to the exam, if one of them happens to get their hands on something, or particularly, I know a couple of them you guys see, they do it on take-home exams. Okay? So if you're doing take-homes, or I do a lot of homework assignments, they're doing them with those. The smartwatches. This is kind of throwing a wrench in things because I can tell them to set the phone aside, but they're still getting them through a smartwatch text. And it may not be from someone else in the class, but they'll have a friend or a significant other or somebody text them, intermittently throughout the test with some different keywords, key definitions, things like that. They can see them and read them coming on their watch. Okay? And even if it's not smart, heck, I get the text notification on my sister to get an answer if somebody actually wants to send you one. Okay?
Yeah, this one, I got targeted.
Is that the lab practicum you're pretty sure you? No, what's the name of
And
it?
actually,
Oh, is
it
it?
was really recent, probably last year.
Okay.
And I remember it happened, the students told me, who tells you this thing, the A student.
Oh, of course.
And I was so mad. I felt I had been prostituted. I had so much faith in them that I felt terrible. And then it went down furious. And I thought about putting them all in. But it was my word against the students, but I didn't have everybody else really see it. And then they can stop what they cheated. And all the people that have been thought to have cheated, shoot, fire, they still want the daylight. Yeah. So I didn't see money.
But you learned the lesson probably too, right? You're like, I don't trust my students to walk out of the classroom anymore. And unfortunately, it's a
That
hard
bothers
lesson. Yeah, it does. I can remember in college, professors would walk in and out during exams all the time. And you just, nobody thought to cheat. If you walk out of the room at all now,
The culture is there.
It's
And you
gonna-
bet I learned my lesson. Guess what? This is scoring, this is general knowledge, this is going to be like a kick on the dog.
watch it like a hawk, okay? So that is actually my next one, the never leaving the room. And I know we do. We want to have faith in them. We want to trust them. But unfortunately, what research shows, don't. They will work together while you're out of the room. I had a colleague in New York who actually got brought before the VP of Academic Affairs because she got in trouble for not watching her students. Because what happened was she was giving a theory exam, and she was sitting at the front of the room online shoe shopping, assuming she could trust the class, and all but a couple students were copying off each other using cheat sheets and whatnot, and those couple good students, they went to the VP and said, Dr. So-and-so wasn't watching, we studied our butts off for this test, and these other students were sitting in class cheating right under her nose because she wasn't watching.
That ripped my heart out.
And unfortunately, it happened. There was an adjunct one day who put some students out, and I didn't know who it was, and I didn't feel comfortable trying to track down who it was. Two female students were sitting in the hallway at one table, two were outside our office. Every time I walk out, they were whispering and talking to one another. Every time. And so they weren't talking about, hey, what's going on Friday night. They're talking about that.
We don't need to be policing them.
Exactly. It's not our job to police them. One thing we should probably do is advocate for a testing center.
Absolutely.
So that if you need makeups and things like that, there is someone and a place for them to go where they can be proctored, and that doesn't have to just fall on you to be watching them. That leads me to one of the other things with makeup exams. If you have students consistently asking for makeup exams, you might want to think about why. There are a couple instances, and I've heard students openly talking about this, that they know certain professors, they can miss the test, wait until the test gets handed back to the rest of the students, find out what the answers are, and then go do the makeup, and it's the same test.
I'll add to that
Been
one.
targeted there too.
Yeah, they don't even wait for you to hand back the test. One of their friends in the class took a picture of your test, gave it to them, and then they asked to make it.
And then they'll come do the mail. I'll make it up before you turn it back, that's no problem.
Oh, they've already got it.
So here's where you get into a couple strategies there. The multiple versions of a test house. Now, I do know I had this conversation with someone one day, and their concern was, well, you're then giving someone a different test. Is that fair? There are multiple ways to ask the same material, right? You can, Karl Marx is known for blank theory versus which theory is Karl Marx known for, or conflict theory is most associated with who? Same content, 3 different ways. So that's one option there. Okay, they don't have to be drastically different, just a little bit. If you do the online testing, I'm not sure how comfortable a lot of you are with Moodle and making your quizzes and tests in there. One thing I'm going to caution you on, if you use Publisher's Test Bank, students have them. All they have to do is set up a false account that they're a professor and students are getting access to those test banks. So if you use test banks, guaranteed your students are getting the material online. And I know that's the easy way to import into Moodle. If you can write your own test questions, okay, and I'm going to be honest, yes, it takes forever that first time. But once you have them, not so bad after that. But that first time will nearly kill you. But once you have them, there are actually easy ways, and if anybody needs to know how to do this and they don't, you can write your quizzes in Notepad using a certain type of formatting, and it imports easily for you with the way you set equal to either your answers and then a little, what's that little curly Q thing for the non-answers or whatever. But we can teach you how to do that if you don't know how. And what you do is put in more questions than you need. So I typically will put in 10 to 20 questions, and my quizzes are always just 5. So that no 2 students randomly get the same 5 questions. You can also have it resort the answers every time too. So that one might say, oh, if you have this question, the answer is A. The answer is not A for the other person because Google just reshuffle them. Just be careful with all of the above ones. If you don't want those shuffled.
I'm struggling with one right now, teaching an online class. It's cost accounting, and got one student that their answers exactly mirror what's in the answer. But I can't prove. To me, it's just too coincidental. And I'm just thinking,
I had an adjunct with this last semester, and I went back and I asked him, I said, there's a study tool right after it that you can't open until they've completed it that week. Did you maybe have the study tool open? And he said, yes, and I didn't realize it. So the students had turned in that study, because I'll oftentimes do an activity like that where we do it all together, and then I'll post it as a study tool for them to go back and work on. He had the study tool open. Some of them figured out, oh, this is basically the answer sheet to the assignment being asked about. But yeah, it's, especially if it's objective, like there's numbers. It's like, did they get my answer sheet? Did they?
well, I'm just wondering if they got the answer key from the publisher, because
A lot of them do.
is dead. I mean, I'm just.
I had a student my first semester here.
God.
Google your own test.
Yes, Google
Google the name
your
of your textbook and the answer.
Yeah, you'll find it.
There should be a way, though, that you should be able to bring in that,
It's word
another
for word.
professor.
Really.
but you should be able to bring in that student and question that, and also then interview them to give you more information. Like, you should be able to, have them, explain that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're back to like what Kay said. I mean, these kids are used to information at their fingertips, and if they think they can find the answer to the publisher's thing, and that's why I don't use any of the publisher's tests, and I don't use the publisher's assignments, because they'll just get it off of there. Okay, and I made a mistake my first year here. I had 4 new preps in the semester, and one class I was like, forget it, I'll just use the publisher. I had a student come to me and she said, by the way, so-and-so finds the answer to every single one of your questions online. That was within the first couple weeks, and I was like, dang it, I guess I'm going back to write down good questions. So there is that one. There's a couple other things you want to think about with assignments. One thing you can do is break up the workload. So I like to do assignments, for example, with UCR crime rates. But each student gets a different crime, and they each report back the numbers for different crimes. Or we just did youth culture projects in one class. Well, one group did symbolism, another group did language, another group did material culture, another group did something else. And that way they can't and especially if you assign it, you don't say, well, go pick which crime you want, because then it kind of becomes suspicious when all my baseball boys turned in the same crime, and all my soccer players turned in the same crime, and all my other, right? So assign them out where each one's doing kind of smaller portions of something different, or make assignments that are subjective, and I know we all struggle with the subjective thing, but personal reflections, right? Personal case studies. Things that no two people should have the exact same example of. When you read the same personal story of their family and you're like, wait a second, you both didn't probably grow up with that exact same experience. Those can help. A couple things for the test. If you can avoid it, don't ever use the same test twice. Okay? Whether that be for makeup or whether that be next semester. They are saving copies. If you can, avoid giving tests back to students. Let them look, unless you're never going to use it again. You are never going to use those questions and stuff, go right ahead. But if you are ever going to use those questions and things again, don't let them keep them. Don't let them snap pictures of them. They are saving them for students who are going to come after and take that class yet again. Okay?
It is true for comprehensive exams.
Yes, it's true for essays, it's true for everything. Okay? So be careful. A couple other things with the finding exams and stuff like that. They do keep the study banks, you want to be cautious there. You also want to be careful about them finding out from fellow students, like I said with the makeup exams. You might want to consider a different makeup. What I do is I finally I dropped the lowest exam. I get 3 and I drop 1. That way I really don't have to deal with the makeups that much. I just tell them, look, you missed 1, that's your drop. You take the other 2. Okay? And that way I don't feel like I have to write a totally separate exam for another one. The other thing you want to think about, a couple things to think about, and I've seen this, and that's why I'm bringing them up. I'm hoping these are obvious, but I've seen this, okay? Don't leave your answer keys and things, or even a sample of the test in a public place. I can't tell you how often I go into the copy room and people's tests are sitting there waiting to be picked up. And especially students are using that copy center more and more now than they used to. Used to be it was only over faculty, and now we've got students in and out using that printer all the time. So as soon as you hit print, go stand by, get your test off of there as soon as it comes through. Especially the answer key. In your office, be sure they're put away, whether you step out to go to the bathroom, whether students come in. Some of you probably notice your students kind of drop by right before an exam. And they just want to ask a question or something, and their eyes are kind of looking around the desk to see if maybe the test is out, and they can see it. Okay? So make sure it's away in a folder, in a drawer, something of that nature. When you're finished with them, like I said, my advice, I don't give tests back. I take tests the day of. If you want to look it over, see what you missed, talk about it with me, then give them back. I don't let them keep old tests. Don't throw those tests just into the recycle. I am a big recycler. But don't just throw them into the recycle bin up in the copy room, because then they're sitting there for anyone to grab a copy and keep. I put them in the shredder bin thing where it's locked and they can get, or I've actually been known to take mine home and recycle them from home, or my husband likes to do the fire pit out back. We'll have a nice little bonfire when I have one for fuel there. So be careful with those kind of things. One of the cases one of you has is a student actually, some of these kids are really technologically bright, hacked into the email. Okay, guys, another thing I've noticed, faculty leaving classrooms and leaving yourself logged in. Right. If you have your test banks and things in your, well, it was H drive, now it's your OneDrive or whatever, guess what they now have access to if they just want to get on that computer right behind you. Okay? And they will, if they notice, Dr. Whiteford just walked out and she left all her files up there for us. Okay? So be careful with old exam things like that. With quizzes, real quick, since some of you do tend to teach them online, a couple things you might consider, other than randomizing your questions. If you want to think about how to look for, and I'm not saying this to be suspicious and go fishing after every student, but these are the things that I've come into contact with. If you have suspicions that someone's doing the quiz for them, make sure they're using X-Proctor, get the documentation of the pictures of who's taking the quiz. You'll either know that that's Johnny's face or that that's Johnny's mommy's face, sitting behind a computer. I had an occurrence of, I suspected 2 of my students because they were girlfriends, and I went back and looked at their quizzes, and it was odd that every single quiz, whatever time the one was started, the next one would start pretty much 8 minutes later. My quizzes are 7.5 minutes long. The one would take it, and then she'd go in and she'd take it for her girlfriend. Okay? Back to back. And you can look at that across different students, right? Because I know one of these on here, and one of it said my name, right? Just like it said my name. It said knowing that one student was taking all of the quizzes for another student in the class. If you suspect, so for example, when mom did quizzes, you can actually look at the IP addresses of where quizzes were taken. Anytime a student accesses Moodle, you can tell where it is. And IT and Caroline are very helpful when I had to compile this and show these quizzes were not taken in the state of Kentucky, except for the one weekend mom was in the state of Kentucky visiting.
Oh, wow, that was.
Yeah, that was that was the only weekend that these quizzes were taken in Frankfurt, where she told me she was staying at a hotel, and it was actually the name of the hotel showed up on the IP address. So you can do those, and if you aren't real tech savvy and need help, ask Caroline. Yeah, ask Caroline or ask Tech, they'll help with you. For the plagiarism and the writing, if you don't use turnitin.com, I suggest you try something like that. Did we just decide we do have that again now? They're going to get it, right? Even if you do nothing else, copy and paste a paragraph or two into just a quick Google search. There is no reason in the world the same paragraph should come up if a student is rephrasing, and yet you will find they do that a lot.
If you're having them write a lot, you'll start to hear their voice in their pieces. And if the voice sounds too professional, then you know something's up. That's a red flag.
What advice is have them turn in little portions of the paper all month. And I know everybody's like, oh God, that's boring. No, just to check it. Because that way you know they're doing as they go. Otherwise there's that temptation they put it off and they're buying it right at the end of the semester. But that way you get the hang of that voice as they go. You see the part, and then all of a sudden they turn in a very different paper with a very different voice. You have, yes. And you've been documented too, kind of what is going on there, okay? One last piece of advice, and obviously this is not everything. One thing you can actually do, research shows, put an honor statement on every assignment you assign. Make them sign it, okay? And this just can be a little 2 to 3 sentence. I, Sarah G. Whiteford, certify that I did not receive any external help and this is only my work. Literally by having to sign it, it makes them kind of stop and think for a second. Yeah. Yep. So, and that way too, if they come to you and say, so I literally, one of the first cases of cheating I had was a young man's mom was a librarian, and he had submitted a paper that was paragraph from one paper, paragraph from another paper, paragraph, just copy and paste it. And I caught it because it said, see image to left. And I was like, okay. And when I asked him, he said, well, I thought this was how to write a paper. This is what I had been taught. Okay? If you had gone over the syllabus with them and you had clearly said, this is not acceptable, and they sign off on that syllabus, they can't later tell you, I did not know this constituted cheating. So one of my key messages to you would not just be know how they're doing it, work on your own policies to figure out what constitutes cheating in your class, be clear about it in your syllabus, be clear about what potential repercussions are, whether it's a 0 on that assignment. I do a lot of, if I suspect 2 students work together and it's clear enough that they did, okay, you can share the workload and you can share the grade. And I'll take the points off the grade first and then share it. Okay? So usually it ends up with a pretty bad grade then. But the idea is that I just want you to be aware of these things. Obviously, there's more to this conversation that maybe at some point we should have. I do want to also thank you guys for being here, and I kept you over a couple minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. Since you guys are here, and some of you know and some of you don't, I did want to also take this minute to say thank you for being wonderful colleagues these last couple of years. For those of you who don't know, I am leaving at the end of the semester. I've taken a job at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, a tenured faculty position there. So thank you. I appreciate working with you guys. It's been a wonderful 3 years. I've had a good time getting to know each and every one of you. But thank you for being here and thank you for all of your commitment. Thank you.